Welcome to DIY World Improvement on WBCR. I'm your host, Catherine Carlozzi. When kids from underserved communities take part in quality after-school programs, all kinds of good things can happen. Research shows they're more likely to avoid negative influences, to finish high school and attend college, and to attain employment as a professional. Our last show featured an after-school program called Glassroots that used art as a platform. Next week's is going to feature Level the Playing Field, which is focused on sports. But today, the subject is law. My guest, Craig Livermore, used his experience at an organization called Legal Outreach in New York City to found the New Jersey Law and Education Empowerment Project, NJ LEEP for short, in partnership with Seton Hall Law School. Legal Outreach has a long track record of working with young people in Harlem and Brooklyn. NJ LEEP builds on that success, empowering 8th to 12th grade students in the greater Newark, Trenton, and Camden areas to higher educational achievement. It strives to expand their horizons to include careers in the legal profession while building character. Craig, who received a JD degree from Columbia Law School, serves as the executive director. Craig, welcome to DIY World Improvement.
Thanks for having me.
Talk a little bit about Legal Outreach and what made you decide 5 years ago to adapt it for New Jersey and how you went about doing that.
Legal Outreach has existed since 1983. It was founded by a gentleman named James O'Neill, their founder and executive director, who also is very much my mentor. James is a gentleman who grew up in Atlanta. He's African-American, went to Emory College and then Harvard Law School. And what James discovered that really struck his heart at Harvard was, first of all, there was a lack of sufficient racial diversity at the school at that time. But even more than that, the racial diversity that was present didn't have a lot of geographical diversity and class diversity. By that, I mean, even those minority students that were able to make it to the law school, the vast majority did not come from low-income urban areas. So that sort of struck James' heart and gave him a lifetime mission to really build quality exposure programming and support in urban areas to, as he says, harvest the skills and potential that he knew was always there. I became involved in legal outreach while I was a student at Columbia Law School, did a lot of volunteering, and eventually ended up working with them. They've had tremendous success. They started what is known as the College Bound program, which is a 4-year continuous after-school Saturday and summer program in the 1990s, and 99% of their graduates have gone on to college. 85% of those students have graduated in 4 years with a degree. 15% of their graduates have gone on to law school. 33% have gone on to graduate school. When I started working full-time for Legal Outreach, which I believe was about 6-7 years ago. About 8 years ago, I started working full-time for Legal Outreach. I'd been doing a lot of volunteering for them along the years. I was struck by their deeply effective, holistic vision. And by that, I mean they certainly used a lot of the resources of the legal profession to expose students with potential interest in the law to the law through mentorship and internships, mock trials, moot court competitions. But they also provided holistic developmental support for the students and a lot of parental engagement. Understanding that the students not only needed to be excited about studying, but also needed to build the everyday skills necessary for success and really needed to grow internally so that given the inevitable obstacles that we all knew that they were going to face both in high school and then especially in college and in graduate school, they would have the inner resources to reach out and build the support that they would need. In fact, I was just visiting 2 of our alumnus yesterday in Pennsylvania at Bryn Mawr Ursinus College. They are now freshmen. We had that discussion. The transition is challenging. We knew it would be. But what inner resources do you have to build the things that you need in the new community, which is very different than the communities they're used to growing up, in this case, for one student in East Orange and one student in Newark. That's a long answer. I didn't get to the crux of your last answer. So, James and I both live in New Jersey. So I was working in New York and living in Montclair. And we definitely knew that the time was ripe to extend the model to New Jersey because the urban communities in New Jersey were very similar to Harlem and Brooklyn that we were then working in, and Legal Outreach still is working, and Legal Outreach is now expanded to Queens as well. And also just sort of started reaching out and found support from, for example, Seton Hall Law School, who wanted to very much build not only sort of what's called a street law program where law students go out and visit schools, but a more intensive support program that could really help transform the lives of students in the area.
What kind of challenges, if any, did you find when you were translating the program to New Jersey? And I assume you started with Newark and then rolled out to Trenton and Camden. Is that the case?
That's absolutely the case. Challenges are endemic to the work, so I try to limit it to 20 or less. We've been blessed to have a fair amount of success. The main challenges in transition are just building all the new relationships that one needs with funding partners, with institutions, with law firms and corporations. We've had a fair amount of success in that. Probably the largest challenge has been building the institutional culture among staff, students, and families. I think we're in a very strong place now. It's been challenging for the first few years, especially with our first class of students who started in ninth grade as ninth graders in 2007, because we were doing something that they had never been exposed to before. We were talking to them about colleges that they didn't know a lot of people that were attending those colleges. So it took a lot of work to build the trust that was necessary to build those foundations to get to the point now where our families are really sort of take a large leadership role in the institution, and the older students take a large leadership role with the younger students.
And that's probably a major factor in success. I know that NJ LEEP focuses on 3 areas: skills, habits, and exposure. Talk about the role of each of those in your mission.
I can take them sequentially. Skills is about understanding, working in the area of legal profession diversity, law school diversity, and then higher education diversity, understanding that the necessary hard and soft skills have to be built in order to have success. So the hard skills are the academic skills, which law is an amazing tool to build those academic skills. So, for example, our students do moot court competitions where they have to write legal briefs and give oral legal arguments in front of attorneys. Mm-hmm. Well, those legal briefs, which our students start to learn over the years, really mirror persuasive writing at an analytical level they'll have to do in college, as well as the oral arguments. We also have in our 4-year programming our Saturday writing program, where we start with the basics of grammar in 9th grade and then build up to persuasive writing and college research writing the senior year, so that students build the writing skills that they're going to need at the competitive collegiate level.
Right.
Now, the soft skills are really about those other things I alluded to before, which are communication skills, networking, building relationships, a comfortability with folks from different racial and economic groupings, because that's what they're going to face more and more as they go out into the world.
Right.
And the ability to sort of build networks within them and relationships and so forth. So all those sort of things are important. Habits are really, it touches on that character issue. It touches on when students come to us as 9th graders and they say, I want to go to law school. It's helping them, and they have not had anybody sort of in the position who's gone through that process to show them what that means on an everyday basis. But it's really about doing our life skills class and our life skills curriculum. It's about working with our students to set expectations for what it means to be a successful student. How much work needs to be done at night, optimal study environments. Discipline, all those sort of things. And an understanding that for us, academic success is never by itself an isolated goal, that academic success as a goal is always intimately connected to a responsibility to community.
Right.
Both NJ LEEP community and then when they have the opportunity to go to college and grad school, the communities from which they originally emanate. That we should all strive for success for the sake not only of ourselves, but for our families and for the communities. Habits, skills, habits, what's the last one? Exposure. It's our mantra, I should know it. The exposure piece is what I alluded to before. Exposure to law firms, corporations, law schools, mentors who have had professional success so that they can see, again, what that path is like.
Right.
But also, again, so they can build a confidence and a comfortability interacting with all realms of society. And
I think it also shows them what is possible.
Absolutely.
And I think all of the people I've interviewed who founded after-school programs that, whatever vehicle they're using, I think that's one of the most important things they do is to create a comfort with the transitions that go with things like going to college, getting into certain careers, and making the students see what's possible.
Absolutely.
Things that they never would have countenanced before.
Absolutely.
Now, you alluded earlier to the 2 different programs that you have, the college-bound program and the community or street law program. Can you tell us a little bit about how they differ, what the components are?
Sure. The street law / community law program is really, it's an in-school program where we partner with various schools. So we work with several schools in Newark. We also work with 2 high schools in Trenton. And then we work with Rutgers School of Law in Camden for our summer program, but also partnering with high schools that feed kids into that program for the summer. That's a sort of combination program where our staff attorney educators do instruction for the students during the school day for credit, criminal justice classes, constitutional law classes, also provide curricula to the schools, and then do professional development and training for teachers so that they continue that process. Most of the programs have a mock trial component with them, so the students are learning criminal justice, and then it culminates in doing a mock trial competition. That's a different prong, as you said, from our college-bound program, which is really sort of centralized at our facility and is during hours outside of school. So, for example, our Newark program, we have kids from 25 different high schools in Newark, East Orange, Irvington, and a couple other towns around that from all those schools gathered at our facility every day after school and on Saturdays and during the summer. The college-bound program allows us to work more intensively ourselves with students every day, and the in-school programs are about providing our resources to help the schools build their own programming with a legal component.
And it's clear that mentors are a really key component of the program, and I'm glad you mentioned that you had your own mentor, because as someone who does do mentoring, I think it's a really important thing. How do you find your mentor volunteers? And what do you think they come away from this with?
That's a great question. Our mentor volunteers, given sort of our focus on the law, are made up of law students and attorneys. So as far as finding, for example, at Seton Hall Law School, we're just very fortunate that we have a strong presence there, and my office is there, and so we just develop a lot of relationships. I also teach classes at Seton Hall Law School, so a lot of the students, we just develop relationships through class, and then we have meetings and so forth and develop those relationships. We have a lot of very good partnerships with law firms and corporations as well, where we do various programming, and then it's really through the partnerships. Prudential, for example, Gibbons, Lowenstein, Sandler, a lot of law firms around. That's a lot of the attorneys get involved through that way. What do they come out of it with? I think probably a lot of things. I think it's a balance for especially folks in the legal profession, which, as we all know, can be a very high-stress profession. It's a balance in that I think it provides a different type of experience and a different type of connection, especially to the community that folks are working in. And it allows them to sort of reach back and have more of an effect on younger kids in the area.
Where do you get your funding?
We have been fortunate enough to have a strong relationship with the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm of the Bar Association, the attorneys in New Jersey. They've been a very strong supporter financially since the beginning. We also get a lot of support from the Law School Admissions Council, which is they're the folks who do the LSAT and very interested in reach back diversity programming. Seton Hall Law School as well supports us financially. A couple of really strong foundations in Newark, such as Prudential Foundation and Victoria Foundation. And then many, in fact, over 45 corporations and law firms support us as well, from Prudential to Gibbons to Goldman Sachs in New York City to Lowenstein Sandler. A lot of the folks who, many of them in the metropolitan area, and really have as part of their culture a strong sense of what's called a pipeline diversity initiative.
Right.
It's the fact that we all need to be proactive about building larger numbers of representation of minority groups in the legal profession, and that an important component of that is quality intervention starting in younger ages.
Right. You founded NJ LEEP in 2006, so you've graduated a full 4-year college-bound cohort. How many students have moved through the program? How many students were in that cohort? And I know that part of your background is mathematics, so I'm sure you've got this well quantified, what the program's achievements have been since you rolled it out in New Jersey.
Sure. I mean, as you said, we've graduated our first 4-year class in 2011. We started with a relatively small class. We have 12 students that graduated in June. They're all in college now, so 100% of them are in college. 80% of them are in top 100 schools, and we're doing visitations with them now to sort of help them prepare for finals. We currently have 86 students in the program, so our current senior class, there are 24 students, and we're preparing them for college as well.
I'm listening to all the things you do to help these kids, and having taught at the college level myself, I wish my students had this kind of preparation for writing and things like that. It would have given them a leg up. So this is a remarkable thing. As you know, I spoke with Dana Arscott, a high school senior from East Orange, who's a senior now in the college-bound program. Let's listen to what Dana had to say about her involvement. Looking back, Dana, at the time you've spent in this program, which is going into the fourth year now.
Yes, my fourth year.
What things have you done that you never would have imagined that you would do?
Firstly, getting up on Saturday mornings to attend grammar, vocabulary, and college prep classes. A few years ago, before I started this program, I never thought that I would be getting up on Saturday mornings, 10 o'clock, to do academic-based work, like, besides homework. Because my Saturday mornings used to be spent, getting up, watching cartoons as a child. So, just getting up and preparing myself to go to basically another school to do work that will allow me to be competitive in society is one of the things that I never thought that I would be doing.
What are some of the other things? I think that you've been doing things like preparing legal briefs.
Yeah, doing debates, deciphering cases in front of attorneys and law students, and I was also given an opportunity to work at LeClaire Ryan Law Firm for a paid internship a few summers ago, and we worked from 9 to 5 along with actual lawyers and paralegals, and in the end, other interns and I faced off in a competitive mock trial with attorneys and judges, and it was a good experience and good exposure for me.
It sounds really interesting. How has your involvement with this program changed the way you view your education and the way you approach your education? For example, are you taking any different classes than you would have taken? Are you getting involved in things you might not have gotten involved with before you entered NJ LEEP?
Yeah, NJ LEEP has definitely made me an advocate. Each year I try to take the most, rigorous classes that are available at my school. And this year I'm taking AP classes, AP Government and Politics, and AP English 4. Because of NJ LEEP, I recognize that the issues and challenges of today are too severe for me to be complacent. Satisfaction just isn't enough. Rising to the top of whatever I do and whatever I'm involved with and going forth my greatest potential is what, NJ LEEP has allowed me to be able to apply to whatever it is that I do.
Where do you hope to go to college? You're a senior, so you must be applying at this point.
Yeah, I'm considering Wesleyan, but I just recently visited Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley, Massachusetts.
Good schools. What else has NJ LEEP changed in your life beyond school and education?
NJ LEEP has changed my drive, I would say. We are exposed to the level of competition that we'll be facing after high school and college, and I have always been motivated to achieve, but NJ LEEP has strengthened my drive to be successful.
And I understand that you've become quite a leader in your school and in your community. Talk about some of the activities you've gotten involved with.
Student council and the street team and lots of other community activities. I'm the president of my house in NJ LEEP, and house is we broke up our NJ LEEP community into 4 divisions. And from freshmen to seniors, we have a mixture of them in the classes so that we all, get to know each other and work together so that the upperclassmen don't just stay with upperclassmen, but they involve the freshmen and the sophomores, and everyone works together as a community because that's what we're about. And I led a fundraiser a few weeks ago where all the students gathered in front of the community house, and as pedestrians passed, we spoke to them about NJ LEEP and what it stands for, and just told them about the amount of academic and law-based rigor we are exposed to in return, for a donation so that what we do can be further promoted and other people can, get to know about NJ LEEP to be a part of.
And I know that you went to a leadership training conference not too long back.
It was at the College of New Jersey, and it was amazing. It was fun. It really was the whole time it felt like we were doing icebreaker exercises, but each day as the conference proceeded, everyone was becoming closer and closer, and at the end, no one wanted to leave. We were working with each other on projects and, working on leadership, building, and we spent the night at the college, and everyone just became closer over, I think it was less than a week, and we all were just as if we knew each other since kindergarten.
Plus, it gave you some exposure to what it's like to live on a college campus.
Yeah, we stayed in a few of the dorms, and in the end, we had a block party as a way to, give everyone a chance to step outside of the work that we were doing. We just had a chance to experience some of the stuff that college students do when they're not in the books.
Of all the things that you've been involved with at NJ LEEP, what has been your favorite?
The college application process.
That's an interesting answer. Yeah. Most people your age hate that process, so I'm going to need you to explain that.
It definitely wasn't the easiest, and I think that's why why it has been the best for me, because I thrive off of challenges and seeing where I can grow and advance as a student, as a scholar. So it provided me with seeing myself in a whole another way. I didn't know that I can complete supplements and all the other stuff that we have to do on the Common Application all at once. So, writing your personal statement can be a hassle sometimes because you don't know what to put in and you don't want to put in too many topics, so it can be overwhelming. I had to do at least 5 different drafts before I got it down. I know that in the end that process will pay off a lot more because I will be able to attend the college so that I can get all the skills that I need to be competitive.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Where do you see yourself after you finish college and in, let's say, 10 years?
I see myself in law school pursuing whatever I would like to achieve. And with law, I can give back by helping those who may not necessarily know how to help themselves. From there, I can branch off from starting my own law firm or becoming a part of another law firm, or, there's no limit to the amounts of things I can do.
If you were trying to convince a younger friend or maybe a younger sibling to become part of NJ LEEP, what would you say to that person?
I would tell them that NJ LEEP is extra support for them to get through high school. It is an entire community that helps you to pursue your education, and they believe in what they promote and what you do while you're there. And all you have to be willing to do is work your hardest and do everything that is asked of you. And it's easy to just barely get by in life or to take an easier route, but NJ LEEP is the real deal.
And it sounds to me like NJ LEEP really is the real deal. How are your students chosen? How do they come to the program?
That's a great question. I mean, logistically, we go out and recruit in the schools in the 8th grade. Basically, go out to as many schools as possible, usually about 30 a year, and guest teach a law lesson. Get the students excited about the subject, and then have interested students fill out contact information forms from which we contact their family members and themselves and invite them through an interview process. So there's 2 rounds of interviews. One is a group interview round where we get to know students in a group context doing exercises. Second is an individual interview round, and we also talk and give a lot of information to the family members. Then we usually get about 200 applications and then choose for incoming class for this first summer program, which is a summer law institute, about 35 or 40 students from there. Really trying to find within what for our students is a pretty wide skill range, some of the more intangible qualities that I think you really hear come out in Dana, regardless of where one is or the obstacles one's faced. Was there some semblance of sort of deep desire to do what it takes to get over that? Now, with teenagers and given the challenges our families face, that's an up and down thing every day, understandably. But we're looking for folks that really, here's the thing, people that really connect with our community and become part of us and help us build. We're all looking for, and I say we because I mean staff and families and students, something where as a community we can do something different. You know what I'm saying? There's really, because everyone articulates an idea of the need for greater academic achievement, which is great, but we tend to sort of build a community, and the people that really buy in are those who say, you know what, we can all do better. Let's come together as a community and challenge ourselves to do better on an everyday basis, and sort of build things up from there.
And in talking with Dana, and obviously there was more to that interview than I was able to air, you could hear how committed she was to following the whole program. It was very evident that this is something she's internalized, and I think the family buy-in probably is a really important component of success in something like this. And also, as someone who's been involved in giving scholarships in the communications profession, I know what you're talking about when you talk about that vetting process and how it's hard to quantify what it is you're looking for in the young people who you're going to help get ahead. But I think the important thing is that there are an awful lot of us out there trying to do that. And that gives us a lot of hope. Craig, I know that in addition to mathematics and law, your background includes a degree in theology. And it seems to me that in legal outreach and NJ LEEP, you found something that lets you draw on all of your disciplines and all of your interests, which is kind of a rare thing. So where do you see this going in the future?
Wonderful question. As a relatively new organization that's now in our 5th year, I think our goal as the Board of Trustees, staff, and family members right now is on sustainability, which basically means that all sorts of realms, building staffing culture, parents, students, and financially, making sure that this is an institution that's going to be around for a while. And I say that because our society and urban communities especially I think, suffer from the lack of really strong institutions that have been sustainable. So to us, that's an extremely deep moral commitment. I think there are always opportunities for expansion. Our work in Trenton, Camden is not the full 4-year college-bound component. It's the more sort of school and summer-based. So there's always a possibility to try and build that 4-year component.
Right.
I think over the next few years, our main focus and goal is the sustainability piece, with sort of capitalizing on any opportunity for expansion when that arises.
Well, Craig, thank you very much for being here today. And I think that our listeners can find you at www.njleep.org.
And gave him a lifetime mission to really build quality exposure programming and support in urban areas to, as he says, harvest the skills and potential that he knew was always there. I became involved in legal outreach while I was a student at Columbia Law School, did a lot of volunteering, and eventually ended up working with them. They've had tremendous success. They started what is known as the College Bound program, which is a 4-year continuous after-school Saturday and summer program in the 1990s, and 99% of their graduates have gone on to college. 85% of those students is very much my mentor. James is a gentleman who grew up in Atlanta. He's African American, went to Emory College and then Harvard Law School. And what James discovered that really struck his heart at Harvard was, first of all, there was a lack of sufficient racial diversity at the school at that time. But even more than that, the racial diversity that was present didn't have a lot of geographical diversity and class diversity. By that, I mean, even those minority students that were able to make it to the law school, the vast majority did not come from low-income urban areas. So that sort of struck James' heart.
Achievement. It strives to expand their horizons to include careers in the legal profession while building character. Craig, who received a JD degree from Columbia Law School, serves as the executive director. Craig, welcome to DIY World Improvement.
Thanks for having me.
Talk a little bit about legal outreach and what made you decide 5 years ago to adapt it for New Jersey and how you went about doing that.
Legal outreach has existed since 1983. It was founded by a gentleman named James O'Neill, their founder and executive director, who also
Welcome to DIY World Improvement on WBCR. I'm your host, Catherine Carlozzi. When kids from underserved communities take part in quality after-school programs, all kinds of good things can happen. Research shows they're more likely to avoid negative influences, to finish high school and attend college, and to attain employment as a professional. Our last show featured an after-school program called Glassroots that used art as a platform. Next week's is going to feature Level the Playing Field, which is focused on sports. But today, the subject is law. My guest, Craig Livermore, used his experience at an organization called Legal Outreach in New York City to found the New Jersey Law and Education Empowerment Project, NJ LEEP for short, in partnership with Seton Hall Law School. Legal Outreach has a long track record of working with young people in Harlem and Brooklyn. NJ LEEP builds on that success, empowering 8th to 12th grade students in the greater Newark, Trenton, and Camden areas to higher education.